Okay, so I'm going to try and build my report from the qualifications file, which would also work equally well if we're trying to build it from a export of a summary markbook from Kmart or anything with that sort of data. So I'm going to go get data, text or CSV, navigate to wherever I've stored that file. Okay, I'm then going to go transform data. My screen up. Okay, so now that I've got my data appearing there, first thing I'm going to do is the first line of this isn't much use to me. Okay, it's just the generation date. So I'm going to go remove rows, remove top rows. Number of rows, 1. Okay, now these are all the headings, the sort key, the local ID, last name, first name. Okay, they're all of the headings and things that I want. So I'm now going to go use first row as headers. Okay, and then those have all gone up. Okay, and we can see over here that the applied steps. Okay, so my source, change them type, remove the top rows. Okay, so every step that we're taking is being recorded here, and I can undo a step by just hitting the X. Okay, or I can hit the cog to go into details. I'm not going to go through that on this. What I am going to do though is I'm going to duplicate this, because I'm going to, so I'm just going to right click on this and duplicate. Okay, and then we're going to make one of these this for the students and one of them for the results. So let's make the top one students. So I'm just clicking qualifications 2020. I'm going to rename this students, and then I'll just hit enter to make that happen. I'm then going to go up to choose columns up here on the ribbon, and I'm just going to take all of the things that relate to students. So I'm going to take their local ID, their last name, their first name. I'm not going to worry about their middle names or their NSN number. I'm going to take their MOE year level, their gender, and their stats ethnicity. Okay, certainly on the file that I've provided, there's not much use here, and these are in the file anyway, the codes, so we need some way of translating them into actual ethnicities. Okay, so go okay there. I'm going to make this other one results. I can double click on it to rename it, or I can rename it over here. So I'm going to call this query results. Okay, and then again I'm going to choose columns, and in here I need to keep the ID, okay, because that's what's going to link these two things, and I'm just going to grab the 4 results. Okay, so Power BI works best when things are in sort of long, lots and lots of rows rather than lots of columns, and so it's going to be much more useful for us to be able to get this all into a single column or into 2 columns. So what we're going to do is making sure that we've selected the local ID here. We're going to go transform, and we're going to choose unpivot columns, the little down arrow beside it to choose unpivot other columns. Okay, so now that's unpivoted all of that data. So I'm going to change the attribute here to qualification. Okay, and the value we're going to change to the grade. Cool. So now that I've got all of those bits in, I can go back to the home ribbon and we can go close and apply. Okay, jump down to here and we can see our students and our results. I kind of prefer to rearrange it this way, so it kind of reminds me that my students are going to filter my results. So we'll jump back up to here. So back on my report screen, I'm going to create a new measure. So in the calculations area on the home ribbon, I've got new measure. So this is where I can write a formula that's going to do a calculation for me. So I'm going to call this one achieved. So I'm going to count the achieved credits. So I'm going to go achieved is equal to, and then I'm going to use calculate. Now if I start typing calculate, I can just press enter and it writes out the thing for that. And then I'm going to go count rows, use the arrows to come down and press enter. Okay, in which table? And I'm going to, in my results table. So there's my results table. Close my brackets. And what I want to do is, you'll see that it's saying calculate expression filter. I'm going to say, well, when the grade, so I'm going to count the rows in the results table when the grade, okay, so results grade is equal to, and then in speech marks, A. Okay, so that's going to close my brackets around the end of it. That's going to count the number of rows, count the number of results where the grade is A. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all of this and go Control C, but I still haven't actually pressed enter, so I better press enter so it actually creates it. We'll see over here that it's appeared as achieved. Okay, there's ways we can arrange these, but I'm not going to look at that in this short video. That'll do at the moment. So what we're going to do now is create a new measure. So I copied that last one by selecting and going Control C. If I needed to, I could go back to this one. Take a second. Whoops, there we go. And I could select it. I'll do it again just for the sake. I'm going to copy it. Okay, go new measure. I'm going to paste. This one I'm going to call merit. So that's when the grade is an M. Press enter, check the merit's been created, new measure, paste, excellence, that's an E, not achieved is an N, oops, too fast, missed a speech mark, and somehow we added an extra bracket. There we go. So it does check your syntax. So I've got not achieved, and last one I'm actually going to count the Y's, because the Y's, did they get UE? So I'm just going to call this one UE, so that if I want to make something for UE, okay, it's going to count the Y's. So takes a little bit to create the measures, but it's the same as sort of in Excel where you might do some sort of count formula. So now I'm going to choose my either stack bar chart or stack column chart. I'm going to go stack column chart. Okay, and then I'm going to drag in my fields. So achieved, so I'm just holding down the mouse to drag them in. Achieved, merit, excellence, not achieved. Okay, so it's not a particularly useful graph at the moment, seeing that I've got 2,500 things, but we'll get there. So what we're going to do is expand the students here, and see we've got filters on this page. So we're going to make this page a sort of level 1 page. So I'm going to put the MOE year, okay, and this is advanced filtering, so I could use that, but basic filtering will be easier. I just want year 11s, okay, and the qualification, so I'm going to drag the qualification from the results also into the filters on this page area, scroll down, and NCEA level 1. So now my graph is just showing year 11s with their NCEA level 1 results, okay, from my 2020 results file. Okay, I'm going to tidy this up a bit because I'm going to duplicate this graph, but if I tidy some things up on this graph, it'll make things a bit easier. So under my y-axis, the axis title at the moment is auto, and I'm just going to change that to student, or number of students. Okay, so now my y-axis is the number of students. Scroll all the way back up there. My actual title for the graph, so at the moment it's based on all those things that I dragged in, but I'm going to change it just to NCA Level 1 Achievement. Okay, so I've got that graph kind of where I need it. Now we could play with data colors in here, but what I'm going to do, which will do well enough for me, is under the view ribbon up here, this end one is classroom, and red's for not achieved, blue kind of works well enough for this, so I'm not going to moderate that, so I'm just going to change my overall theme just up there. Back over here, might be useful to actually see the numbers of these things, so under that paint roller thing, data labels, just turn them on. Okay, so now I've got data labels on. If I do some of the formatting on this first graph, it's going to make things easier, because I'm going to just duplicate this graph. So I'm going to go Control C to copy, Control V to paste, stick another one beside, okay, add another one beside. Okay, so what I'll do with these is this graph I'm going to make about gender. So go over to students, so I've selected this graph, back on the fields selection, I'm going to put gender into the legend. Oops, try and do it more accurately. Sorry, brain. Gender goes into the axis. I want gender on the axis, right? So now I've got male and female appearing on the axis. Okay, this graph, instead of gender, I'd like to put my ethnicity. So I'll grab my stats ethnicity and add that into the axis there. Now, looking at this, it might, you got different choices of your graphs. Once you've got it set up, you might choose 100% stacked column. Might actually be more meaningful. Okay, I'm just going to undo and leave it at that on this at the moment. So now that I've made these graphs, I can go back under my roller, down to my title, and I'm just going to add, if I can spell things correctly, gender into the title for that one. And it's quite handy that if you check through the same type of graphs, that keeps the thing there. Ethnicity on this one. Okay, I'm going to add in just sort of demonstrate the idea, and it can be sort of useful to us. I'm just going to add so clicking somewhere free, going to add a donut chart. Okay, and so perhaps make a couple of these, one with the gender, just to see the gender breakdown of the year 11s who were doing this. So add gender as my thing, and then the ID, right, is going to be, if I put the ID into the things, it's going to do count of ID by default. Now there's reasons why it's better to create a whole measure for this, but this will be okay for what we're doing. So if I click on there, I can see that, yep, it's using count. Okay, and that's what I want. It's just counting in the students, and there shouldn't be any duplicates of students in there. I'm going to rename it for this visual. So I'll just change that to students. Okay, so now I've got a nice little graph showing my proportion of students. Okay, I'm going to copy it, paste it. Okay, and then I'm going to choose stats ethnicity and drag in there. Now, you notice that it can have two things in there, and so you can have multi-layered sort of things. Not going to worry about that at the moment. Just going to get rid of the gender, and so now I've got a little graph of my ethnicity. Just as a useful tool, what we can do with this is under Format, up here, Edit Interactions. At the moment, when I click on something, you'll see that the other graphs sort of adjust, but I like it to completely filter the graph. So I've clicked on this one, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say filter this graph. Filter this graph. There's not much point in it filtering that graph, so I might actually say don't do anything on that one, okay, because that's an ethnicity on the ethnicity, okay, and I will get it to filter this graph. Then I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to go through the same process. I'm going to say filter this graph, filter this graph, no need to have any impact on this graph, and filter this graph. So now, okay, I can see what's happening with the females, okay, in terms of their ethnicity. Okay, I can see what's happening with the males. Okay, if I just click on the bit that I've clicked on again, it goes back to where it was before. If I just want to look at Maori achievement, okay, I can break it down and see the difference, the gender difference in Maori achievement, things like that. So I find that quite useful. So to me, where Power BI sort of comes into its own is that there was a bit of work underneath getting to here, but now I can just duplicate this page, duplicate it again. Okay, I'm going to call this page level 1, this page level 2, this page level 3, go to the level 2 page, the MOE year, going to change that to 12, the qualification, going to change to NCA level 2, going to just click on that graph, go down to its title, change that to a 2, change that to a 2, that to a 2, go to the level 3 page, the 13s, NCA level 3, go to my titles, and I'm gonna three, three, 3. Okay, and so now I've got all 3 levels things. I can go on and make my UE page. I could also, as you see that at the moment I can filter by gender, stats, ethnicity. If I just did an export of more data from K-Maori Student Management System with the ID and say their primary school or any other bit of data that I've got on them, I could just bring that data in and create the relationship, so that then I could filter by that. If I want to now, can add a text box. If I want to put a heading or things on each page, that's to me. I might choose that blue versus blue isn't a great color combo for gender. Okay, so if I want to, just under the data colors, if I want to make my females yellow instead to make that clearer, would have been good to do that before I duplicate the pages, things like that. Hope you found this useful.